because when you're doing great things, you got to balance it out. Like, so, like when people are discrediting you, hold on, we're gonna start 1 second. So when people discrediting you, it's like, all right, here we go, here we go. Yeah, so when people are discrediting you, it's like a balancing thing. You know what I mean? So, anyways, so what the point is? So the point is saying, so my connection was more of a critique on society, right? Meaning on not on society, but also on life. Like, what is reality? What is the goal? What is the connection? What is, all these different things? Like my parents were my mom's, one of the heads of, one of the biggest teacher education departments in America, right? And my sister's a professor, right? So I understand academia. I understand it, right? And my dad's a business. I understand the business world. You know what I mean? So the thing is saying that what it was the ability to kind of look at life and challenge a lot of the ideas that I've been presented with, right? And not in a place of, oh, like me against them or anything like that, but more so wanting to have a greater connection, right? And that's one of the things when I went to the Kabbalah Center is like that's the world that they opened up to me, was like that conversation of like, what is reality? What is life? What is the purpose of life? What is this? And one of the examples they used, I didn't want to put together a little graph for it because I think we could talk it out. But like, I remember one of the first classes I was in, they asked a question and they said, like, if you could have anything you want, what would you, if we could get, like, if we could show you what they're like messing with us, whatever verses in the Kabbalah, so maybe we could show you something in the Zohar, we could read it, and then voila, it's there for you. What would you want, right? And they're all, everybody was saying stuff. At that time I wanted a Porsche, right? I wanted that Carrera 5. They just came out. It was a 4 door. It was an automatic. I don't know how to drive stick, right? So that's what I was thinking. That's what I wanted. That's what I wanted. So I want the Carrera 5. This person said I want $1 billion. I was like, God, why didn't I say that? So it was like all these things. But when you put them on the canvas, when you write down $1 billion, right? Okay, you have $1 billion. Boom. So you have $1 billion. So what next? Okay, so $1 billion, you're going to buy your house, you're going to buy your mom a house, you're going to buy your cousin a house, you're going to do this, you're going to buy this, you're going to give this money in charity, right? You're going to do this thing, you're going to do these things, right? Okay, fine. So that's another bracket, right? Of all the things you're going to acquire with $1 billion. Then if you ask, okay, so after you buy those things, then what? Well, most of the things you're going to say is that you're going to feel a certain way, right? You're going to feel good that you help those people. You're going to feel safe because you're in your own home. You're going to feel more relaxed because the people that you took care of are okay, right? So that next bracket is going to be all feelings, right? So if you go to the root of each of the feelings, the feelings are just words. But really, in essence, we're talking about energy, right? The feeling of relaxation and knowing that people are good in your life is an energy. You feel it, right? Like we saying feel, but the root of the feeling is the energy, right? And if you feel safe, that's the energy. If you feel accomplished, if you feel respected, right? You feel, some people, I'm feared, all these things are just how you feel, right? And these are all rooted in energies. So the point is saying that if all those things are energies, that means that when I fantasize about any type of like luxury or experience in life, the root of that desire is energy, right? The root of that desire is energy. Now, yeah, I may go and buy this, I may feel this way afterwards, and whatever. But the bottom line is energy, right? And so when we really connect to that idea, you could look at, like, say, advertisements or the concepts, everything around us is kind of like giving us this kind of like entry into energy, right? Like, you see somebody, like, in a car, they're with their family and they're going up a hill and they're all singing a song and this, blah, blah, blah. You want that feeling, right? If you could get the feeling without the car, you'd be like, well, why do I got to spend the 50 grand? You know what I mean? So it's all, and all human beings are based off of that. So the question is why? Why is it that we desire this energy, right? And so that's part of the exploration right, of spiritual wisdom is to answer those questions, is to say like, okay, well, like, how do I connect to more light? How do I, elevate to a higher level? How do I, stay in a place of happiness? How do I stay in a place of peace? That doesn't mean you're not going to have conflicts, right? It doesn't mean you're not going to have challenges, like everything just vanishes, but you have the ability to recalibrate. One of the examples I like to use, I wrote about it, is this idea of, like, say if you go to a bookstore, right? I don't know if they have bookstores so much anymore, but there was a time where everyone went to Barnes and Nobles and I don't can't even think of the other names, but there was other bookstores, right? And people will go there, and so you go to the bookstore and you go in the section for with dictionaries, right? And so you have a whole thing of dictionaries, this, blah, blah, different covers on it, Webster's, this whole thing. But if you look inside of the books, the dictionaries, most of the definitions in the words are pretty much the same, right? Maybe a little bit of this, maybe a little etymology over here, maybe a thesaurus, but still the words and the definitions are pretty much exactly the same, right? And so that being pretty much the same, that means that when you take a step back in that bookstore and you look around, when you take a step back from that area in the bookstore, you look at all the books there, all the books there are all written with the same words, and they all have the same definitions, right? Now, someone could argue and say, oh, well, if they had different definitions, it'll be chaos, right? This one reads like this, one reads like that. But the point is just saying we have to understand that that is still something that's being presented to us, right? We're still being presented. You go to universities, you go to college, you become educated, you become this, but still at the end of the day, it's reading a series of materials that are written with the same exact words and with the same exact definitions. Now, one of the things that, when I came to Israel and I started learning in yeshiva, and we start learning like the Gemara and the Talmud, whatever, but really the root of it was learning a different way of learning, right? Because all the definitions, everything inside of the Torah sources could have several different definitions, right? Like one word could mean like several or 14 different things, and maybe even more depending on the context, right? So there's no fixed definitions of that. And so that's why people throughout the ages are able to explore and challenge and this whole thing. They even say it's 70 faces to the Torah, and within those faces, there's different dimensions, right? And so that idea of being able to critique all of society in that way. Why do we set with only one set of definitions for everything, right? And not only that, who determines those definitions? I want to know. You know what I mean? I want to go to those. I need to be in the part of those meetings. You know what I mean? Where they're creating definitions for these words that I'm reading and going about, and then I need to understand what is their motivation or their intentions behind that, right? Because that is shaping my reality, and perhaps there's more ways to see it. Maybe this is one set of definitions and you can learn the books in this way, but maybe I could take those same words and apply a whole nother set of definitions and learn those books in an entirely different way, right? And maybe people know that, and so maybe they wanted us to see reality in this one kind of like singular frame of reference, right? And so that's why but everyone's doing it, and especially that America is such a superpower that we just accept it like, hey, Library of Commerce, it's all good. But again, I'm not speaking from rebellion. I'm not like, oh man, I'm angry. No, I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is that I don't personally have to be limited to that frame of thinking, right? And so I have like a video I want to show you. It's like a 4-minute video. It's like so we're gonna get in some stuff, little Talmud. We're gonna learn a little Talmud today. And so but the point is creating this kind of like starting this thought process of saying like, it's not that things are bad. Everybody has to turn something into an enemy. You know what I mean? They're just like, oh man, they trying to get us. They tricking us. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying this is the design. I mean, I'm impressed. It's a great design that was created. So the question is, what is more? Because I want to push this. I want to be a part of what's going forward. You know what I'm saying? I want to be a part of being what's going forward. So the point to all this is just to say that ability to re-understand the self and to be able to re-understand the world around me, right, and to be able to look around me and apply many different definitions to what I'm seeing and experiencing, right? Thus expanding my consciousness, seeing things like if I'm looking at this tree, and this tree could mean all these different things in the way that it's made, and the branches and the trunks and the roots and the leaves and this and the seasons. All this could mean something completely connected to planets and connected to ideas in the Torah, connected to my personal life. It reminds me of this. It's a mission statement. And you're walking around and that's what you see. You're not just seeing a tree, right? You're not just seeing photosynthesis. You know what I'm saying? We're talking about you're seeing a whole design that represents all these attributes. And you can say the same thing about the sky. You could say the same thing about birds. You could say the same thing about grass. And then most importantly, you can say the same thing about yourself, right? And so it's that idea of being able to reassess the self is something that unfortunately academia is not there for. And one of my proofs of this before we go into this video is the simple fact is like everyone agrees that we have a soul, right? There's no classes on soul in university. And if you don't have any classes on the soul in university and all of your reasoning and scientific deductions are based off of the absence of the analyzation of the soul and this function of the body and everything around me, I can't trust your words. It's a false analyzation for me. For me, I'm just saying I'm a spiritual guy. You know what I mean? So for me, I know that I have a soul. So if you're going to tell me how reality functions, and you're going to tell me how my health functions, and you're going to tell all the things, but you're not going to incorporate the fact that I have a soul, and if I die, the soul's gone. The body's still here. The body's still here. Soul's gone, right? You can even try to keep the body alive. Soul's gone. It's gone. It's over, right? So if we believe, if we accept that there's a soul. Now, if you want to say there's no soul and a human being has no soul, okay, fine. I respect that argument. But if you say that there is a soul, and you do believe there's a soul, because the Torah says that there's a soul, that's my proof, right? The Torah says that he blew a ruach into the nostrils of man, and then he became a living being. Okay, so that's how I understand it, right? So if we accept that idea, then that means, right? Then that means that the structure that's around me is designed absent this understanding, and so therefore you have to question its claim for accuracy, or its claim for correctness, right? Because if you didn't incorporate that in your understanding of biology, that all creatures have living entities inside, living souls inside of them. Animals have souls in them. Plants have souls in them, and even rocks, even minerals, right? They even have life. They even have sparks of God inside of them too. So if your old deduction reasoning is absent, that how are we going to have a good conversation? One, and then two, what's the basis that you're accurate? Like, what's the basis of you're accurate? You know, it's like me coming up with a conclusion in the Torah, and I'm like, oh wow, what a brilliant idea, right? But I can't connect it to all the levels, right? Because there's 4 levels of learning the Torah, right? Or, you know, and within those are levels, but there's 4 levels. So if I can't connect this idea to those 4 levels, it's not an accurate idea. You know what I mean? So anyway, so the point is just saying, so this is part of that critique of society, is to say that, like, wait, they created a society we don't even acknowledge this all. And I would say this is my personal reason why. Because the whole purpose of Western society is to have a high production workforce. And the more that you focus on the soul, the more you create an environment for individuality. And in order to have a productive workforce, everybody got to be on the same page. We wake up, we just like, hey, let's go. We're going to work. Where's my coffee? Let's go. Where's that traffic? Let's get it, right? And no one questions it. No one questions it, right? And so that's the thing. Is there other alternative ways of living? Is there other alternative ways of seeing reality? Is there other alternative ways to achieving fulfillment? You know what I'm saying? And so like that is the conversation. That's where we're going. And so the safety route, because there's all types of things out there, the safety route for me is the Torah. So anyway, so let's go into this video. And this video is kind of like, it touches on this idea of like what we see, right? You know, eventually we'll have full-blown proposals. Hold on. Let's go into my YouTube 1 second. Wait, who's that guy? Hold on. Okay, here we go. Hold on. It's interesting, Israeli commercials, right? Hold on.
בוא תראה משהו בו. תסתכל פה.
You guys can hear it okay?
ב-26/10/2023, בנקודה הזאת כאן, שמדד ה-S&P יורד כאן...
All of that visual information is processed to create the picture you see of the world. Unlike a camera, your brain can actually fill in missing information. For example, your eyes automatically blink every 3 to 4 seconds. In fact, that means your eyes are technically closed for roughly 10% of your waking hours. Thankfully, your brain fills in those gaps so you don't feel like the lights are flickering on and off all day long. There's a lot we still don't understand about the complexities of our visual system. As technologies continue to innovate, the line between illusion and reality could start to blur. And when it comes to how we see the world, there might be more than meets the eye. Sensitive So, when you look at this painting, what do you see? A woman looking out a window? How about now? This famous painting by Salvador Dali is based on something called the Lincoln illusion. The effect shows how blurring pixelated images can make it easier to recognize faces. Optical illusions are fun to look at, but they can also tell us a lot about our sense of sight. So, how does the eye work exactly? And is it really true that seeing is believing? The human eye is pretty extraordinary. It has more than 2 million moving parts and can move faster than any other muscle at less than 1/100th of a second. But when it comes to your vision, the way you perceive the world is actually thanks to your brain. First, light enters the eye through the pupil. The muscles behind the iris squeeze and stretch the lens to focus the light onto the back of the eye. This is the retina. The retina is covered with sensitive photoreceptors called rods for dim light and cones for bright light. The focused light hits the retina at a small pit called the fovea, which has the highest density of cone receptors. We often compare our eyes to cameras, but they actually work quite differently. Our peripheral vision is very low resolution. We only see in full resolution at the small point of our fovea. But we barely notice it because our eyes are constantly refocusing on what we want to see, like a high-resolution spotlight. Pixels, or picture elements, are the tiny illuminated squares that make up a digital display. If 2 pixels are close to your eye, the retina sends 2 signals for the brain to interpret. Farther away, 2 pixels prompt 1 signal. That's why a TV screen can have a lower pixel density than a smartphone, but seen from farther away, it still appears seamless. When stimulated, the rods and cones send signals to the optic nerve and back to the brain. Then, all of that visual information is processed to create the picture you see of the world. Unlike a camera, your brain can actually fill in missing information. For example, your eyes automatically blink every 3 to 4 seconds. In fact, That means your eyes are technically closed for roughly 10% of your waking hours. Thankfully, your brain fills in those gaps, so you don't feel like the lights are flickering on and off all day long. There's a lot we still don't understand about the complexities of our visual system. As technologies continue to innovate, the line between illusion and reality could start to blur. And when it comes to how we see the world, there might be more than meets the eye.
All right. So, anyways, so the point of that, the whole point of that video was just basically to say that this is another critique, right? If my eyes only seeing like 1% of reality, and there's a whole 99% happening around me, and we didn't go into that, right? Right. The whole is 1% of reality. There's a whole 99% happening around me, and they're saying that all the energy molecules, all these things, everything, right? It's just floating around us all the time, and it's 99%. And so what we're saying is that wait, that energy that's going on around us, some of that energy is good, and some of that energy is not good, because we can't see it, right? How I can't see the energy. I can't see the energy. I mean, it's like it's either good or not good. You know what I mean? I'm not sure, right? And so the idea is to say that the idea is to say that how do we know how to interact with a world that we can't fully conceptualize with our five senses? We're living in it. It's around us all the time. We're living in a world that we can see. We're living in a world that we can't see. So how do I navigate that world, right? Like it's like a kid comes in to the kitchen, and his mom's, making something hot on the stove, and he touches the stove, and it burns him. And he could clearly associate that this burning has to do with me touching the stove in this heat, right? So he's not going to do it again. But what if he couldn't see the stove, right? Like he couldn't see it, right? So he couldn't feel the heat, right? But it was still there. And he kept touching it over and over, burning himself every day, all the time, right? And he just accepted it as a normal way of life, right? Even though he's full of scars and he's burnt up, the whole thing, right? So that idea of being able to be able to navigate in the world and not be able to put ourselves into a situation or situations that's not going to lead us to a great result, right? And that's the point. Or like say like on a simple level, like, a lot of guys, if you take the intellect of a guy, they would think, right, in just up to for thousands of years, they would think that a guy, he should have many, many women, right? You would think, right? The way the men are built. But no, but God says, no, you have to marry your wife, right? You got to marry Chava. Why? And that's the opposite of how the male would think, right? Because males are all about procreation, right? By just genetic design, right? And so God takes that desire and says, no, I want you to focus it in this way with a wife. You're going to create a family. You're going to have a home. You're going to have these obligations to everybody. And you're going to have to be consistent. And you're going to have to grow. And you're going to have to take accountability. But that's not the natural nature of men, right? The natural nature of men is like off to the next thing, off to the hunting. They want to go hunting every day, right? And some guys never evolve past that level of development. And you see they're acting just like that, right? And so the point is saying that we have natural desires. And those natural desires or instinctive desires are built within us, but how to use them correctly? How will we know? How will we know that a guy is supposed to build a family? No, I'm just supposed to go around and and just get whatever I can all the time and just hunt and eat. And we would never built a society. Look at the society we have around us. That's from families. If that mechanism did not exist, but I'm saying it's not, no one can say that that's a normal thought to think, because we are instinctively and biologically, intellectually created differently, right? And so it's just saying that, this thing of just like kind of like, challenging, the critique again, right? And so this is the point that we're going to, is saying like, wait, how can I operate in a world that I can't fully see? And how do I deal with desires that may connect me and connect me to energies that are not going to be beneficial to me? Right? I mean, how? Like, what am I going to do? I'm gonna watch. What's my man's name with the Dr. Phil? No, I'm just saying. TJ Jakes. It sounds nice. It sounds nice. I got love for you. You know what I mean? I got love for TJ, but I haven't seen any tools. I haven't seen any tools for that. And so that was what was one of the most attractive things for me as it relates to Islam that I grew up with. Because Islam is great. It's positive. I grew up with healthy parents. They wanted to be successful. They wanted us to be successful. They give us freedom. That came out of Islam, right? Didn't come out of a Jewish thing. Later, my mom eventually came to the Kabbalah Center too. My sister eventually converted. You know what I mean? So it's just saying that, like, but these things came years and years after, right? And so the point is just saying that it was the tools that allowed me to independently go on my thing. Most people, like, they want to have followers, right? They're just like, hey, you know what? I want to have followers. I want to have 100,000, 200,000, millions of people, this whole thing, followers, right? But the reality is that model doesn't work, right? That model doesn't work and is easily stopped, right? So if you really are an artist, and I really see myself as an artist in a lot of ways, growing up in LA, and I mean, we just loved, we were kids growing up throwing parties. That's what we love doing. We love throwing parties. We eventually do concerts and all types of stuff, but we just loved, we felt we were changing the world by our parties. You know what I mean? Like, we had these concepts and this, and we're going to bring all these different musics together, DJs upstairs, rappers downstairs. You know what I mean? It's like, that's it, and like, we were just those kids passing out flyers in the middle of the night on the whole thing, for our shows. So I'm one of those kids, you know what I mean? Like, we grew up like that. We grew up like, okay, like, how can we become billionaires? You know what I mean? This type of thing. Anyways, so the point is just saying that what we're going to, in the whole point of this, because this is just kind of like an introduction, we'll have more material-based stuff. But and we still got some more to learning. We got learning. But the point is just saying that the idea is still to say that, how do I navigate? How do I navigate? How do I manage my impulses, right? And the Islam thing was great, but it's just like, okay, God is great. Submit yourself. Then what? How do I balance these energies? How far can I go? What's my potential? That's all I'm talking about, right? And you could call whatever, you could put whatever name you want to put on it, whatever. No, I just need the technology. I need the technology to access higher consciousness. I need technology to be able to manifest my objectives and my dreams. I need the technology to bring out my uniqueness, right? And that's what I need. I mean, it's cool. Like, everything else is all good. I mean, but so that's the process, that I just been on, and that's the learning that I have, and that's the navigation, because I realized that that's the game, bro. Like, because I mean, I grew up in the suburbs, you know what I'm saying? So it was never like, like, oh, I mean, I was trying to take over companies, you know what I mean? Like, that's where my head was at, like, as a young person. Like, I was like leveraging money, investment bankers. I was like, we were trying to become millionaires, like when we were like 23 years old, 22. That was like a real thing. In my high school yearbook, I'll show you, most of my friends says, I'm going to take you out when I make my first million, or I'm going to make my first million before you. You know what I mean? That's how I grew up. And then not only that, I grew up in the .com age, right? Where everyone was like, the kids were starting internet companies, like, oh man, we got to be a part of that. What do we got to do? You know what I mean? So it was, and we're just running around with business plans, and we're like, like 20 something years old, 21 years old, you know what I mean? And we just thought like it was going to happen right then, you know what I mean? But so the point is saying that the next movement is just being able to empower people to plug into their consciousness, right? And really ultimately the power of them plugging into their consciousness is by helping other people do it. You know what I mean? And so that's really the movement. The movement is letting people plug into their uniqueness. No more followers, no more, this, this clandestine tribalism, type of a thing. It's really about like, connecting to the soul and people connecting to their uniqueness. And that being said, so I'm gonna bring up this other point. Any questions anyway, right? Any questions, any thoughts? You're good? Okay, cool. So I want to bring up this pretty sure me and your husband learned this together already. It's Nita. Yeah, we did learn it, didn't we?
I'm sure we did. I think so.
But the in the mother's womb, learning
Yeah,
Torah?
yeah, we have.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Lucian, I think. No, it's not.
31B. I think this is it. I think it's 31B. Yeah, I think so. Hold on. Whoa. So, anyways, so these, but I'm saying, so for me, I got into this because I realized like this. I was like, you know what? And I'm just being honest, and I know it's recording. People will hear this. The thing is like this. It's like I grew up and it was just kind of like it was just a time where there was a lot of money being circulated and the interest rates were different and a lot of things were going on. But the reality is like, when you're in that level, you realize that, how far you guys are out of the game. This is wild, this thing I'm reading right now. But anyways, you realize like so annoying. I'm just trying to figure out I think I got the wrong one. 30, 31. Maybe it's 31A. Anyways, so the thing is, and I know it sounds like, somebody else could hear it and be like, what are you talking about? But yeah, this is it. Hold on. This is an amazing Gemara, by the way. So the thing is, and I'm just being real about it. I'm being real about it. The thing is like when you realize, like when you grow up in the suburbs, you realize that there's like working wealth and then there's a whole nother level of wealth, right? And it's not in the frame of like, oh, I got billions of dollars. You know what I mean? It's not that. It's not like it's beyond that. You know what I mean? Because excuse me, hold on. Oh, wait, I can't figure out what's this. Okay, wait. So I found it. So all the way down here. Anyways, so what I realized is that the next level is consciousness, right? Like that's really like the people who really are like doing humongous things in the world, they're just operating at a different consciousness and they're operating their self-perception is different definitions. You know what I'm saying? And so I realized that. I was like, wait, that's like when you look at people like how are they in those positions? Why are they doing that? Because they're in a different consciousness. They're like looking at the whole world completely different, and I can't believe this. Hold on. I thought I had it. I didn't. I got to figure out where this thing is at. That's always like this. All right. What are we holding at? I got to figure out how to find this thing. Anyways, so the thing is, so I realized that it was consciousness. Like that's what I realized. I like the whole thing is consciousness and information, right? And then when I got at the Kabbalah, like I became friends with Yehuda Berg. We became buddies, and he became like a mentor. And that was the whole thing. It's just like it's just consciousness. All the people like they always talk about all the rich people that go to Kabbalah. It's like, but like, why though? Why? Why are these people going? Hold on. They're going because they're looking for more information. And so when I realized that, I was like, bro, that's the key. The key is information. And once you Who did I send that to? Do you remember? Do you remember what? Is it Nita B? Is it Nita? Is it 31?
I think it's
Hold on.
31A, I think.
Is it 31A?
So,
Hold on, 31A. Yeah, yeah, that's what I was just looking up.
yeah, I think it's 31A.
Yeah.
Yup.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, but so it seems like uh yeah, 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 but it starts here. Okay, so it starts back here. Okay, perfect, perfect. It's actually it starts in 30B and it ends in 31A. All right, hold on. Ah, so I get the right place to start exactly. Okay, got it. Perfect. Okay. So okay, so here's the thing. So like I said, like pretty much in this conversation, right? We've just been like just going at it, just challenging reality, right? We're challenging the way we see. We're challenging the world that's going on around us. We're challenging the information as how it's being presented to us. We're challenging. So we're gonna get even more. We're gonna get even more ruthless in this attack, right? And we're gonna bring out some like holy stories. So what's being brought is like from 2,000 years ago, right? People can have their problem with the Talmud. I'm not saying you gotta. I'm not saying people gotta agree with it, but the bottom line is you can say it's fake. You know what I'm saying? Like no one's ever said that. No one's ever said, "Nah, man, that book ain't real." No, they be like, "I hate that book. Get it out of here." Blah blah blah. But no one says it's not real. So bottom line is, we have the privilege of learning wisdom that was written down by, in my opinion, my ancestors, your ancestors, at the destruction of the first temple, when my ancestors went into Babylon, and and my ancestors that went into Babylon, and they were worried, and so they started taking a lot of oral traditions and organizing them, and they compiled this thing called the Mishnah. Anyways, we'll go into all those details and how things came together. And we haven't even started dealing with the black stuff yet. We haven't even got there yet, right? But the point is, because it's not about that. That's the whole point. That's the whole point. Once we get into it, it's like, no, you can't define me anymore. But I will use your definitions to leverage situations. You see what I'm saying? But those your definitions don't. I define me. You don't define me anymore. I got all the skills to define myself. Anyways, so we're going to continue this ruthless attack. And so we're going to go into this frame of where does knowledge come from? So this was written 2,000 years ago, Babylon, Talmud Babali. And so this is the book of Nida, which has to do with women and all that type of women stuff. But anyways, we won't go there now. But the point is like this. So okay, so it says Ein Lak Yamim She'adam Sarai. So it says like this. Okay, so this is we're gonna start dropping bombs in a second. Okay, so it's like this. He's the Talmud is saying like this. There are no days when a person is more in a blissful state than the days when he is in the fetus of his mother's womb. That's a crazy statement. So they're saying the happiest days of a person's life is when we're in our mother's womb. Can you believe this? And it says, and so he brings a verse. So the Talmud's written like this. It makes a statement, and then it'll bring a proof to that statement. And most of the time, the proof is going to be something written in the Torah or the Tanakh, right? So he's bringing this verse from Jobs, right? This from Job, sorry. And this verse is supposed to reinforce his idea. So he says, the verse says, if only I were in the months of old, as in the days when God watched over me, right? So he's saying that verse is referring to when we were in our mother's womb. And he says, and the proof that that verse is referring to pregnation is as follows: which are the days that months do not have years, right? So he says, so the first part of the verse says, if I were only, if if only I were in the months of old. So why would he say months, right? So he asks a question. He says, in which days have months but do not have a year? So he could have said in the days of my olden years, but he said months. So he says that to him, he's using that as a proof to say that this must be the months of pregnation. Umila midin otoko Torah kula shena amar. So he says like this, in the fetus. Okay, so why is this time so happy? What's going on? So he says, and the fetus is taught the entire Torah while in the womb, as it is stated. He taught me and said to me, let your heart hold fast my words, keep my commandments and live. Okay.
Yeah.
So he says, so when we're in the fetus, we're taught the entire Torah. We're going to get there. How does that happen? We're going to get there. But the bottom line is, this is a massive statement. This is a massive statement, because when we're talking about the Torah, we're not talking about like just like Bible verses, right? No, we're talking about all the wisdom that exists. They're within those verses. They're within those letters. They're within those configurations, right? And those are accesses to different lights, to different powers, to different wisdoms, to different levels. So we're giving all that as a child. Wait, I thought I was getting educated in school. The sages are teaching 2,000 years ago. No, when you were a baby, everything was inside of you. So let's go. So and he brings a verse from Proverbs. And he taught me and said to me, let your heart hold fast my words, keep my commandments and live. And it also states, as I was in the days of my youth, when you converse with God upon my tent. So he says, my Omer. So the Gemara asks a question: what is the purpose of the statement? And it also states, when God conversed upon my tent. So this is the verse. So all is right now, they're breaking down the verse. He makes a verse. Well, what do you mean? You just bring a verse. How do we understand this verse? What does it mean? So he says like this. So he says, the verse says again from Proverbs. Wait, no, it's not Proverbs. In Job's, sorry. So he says, the verse says, as I was in the days of my youth, when the converse with God was upon my tent. So he's asking the question, when was this time about the tent? The tent, right? He says, when did God come to your tent and have a conversation? Why is it necessary to cite this verse in addition to the previous verse from Proverbs, right? So they're bringing verses, they're teaching us. He says, the Gemara explains, and if you would say that the verse of Proverbs was insufficient, as it is a prophet who is saying it, that he is taught the entire Torah in his mother's womb, but this doesn't apply to the ordinary person, he says, then he brings the verse, come and hear the verse of Jobs, when God conversed upon my tent. That was amazing. Okay, so he says like this. So they bring two verses, right? We got to do this. We're moving stuff around. So one verse says, let me be taught, and he taught me and said to me, let your heart hold fast my words, keep my commandments and live. That's what he says, right? That's in Proverbs. So the Gemara says the reason why it's important for him to bring both of these verses is because you might say that this is King Solomon saying this, right? This is King Solomon. Okay, so when a prophet is born, he gets the Torah, but me as a regular person, no. And so he said, no. So then he brings the verse of Jobs, and he says, in the verse of Job conveys when God conversed when God converse of when the converse of God was upon my tent. And he says, in this verse teaches us, no, it's for ordinary people as well. So he says, once the fetus emerges into the airspace of the world. Okay, so this is where it gets crazy. Childbirth stuff. It gets wild. Okay, so he says, once the fetus emerges into the airspace of the world, this is the birth process. Okay, this is the birth process. Now they're going to break down how this whole thing happens and how if we know all this stuff, what's going on. Once the fetus emerges into the airspace of the world, an angel comes and slaps it on the mouth, causing it to forget the entire Torah. As it states in Genesis chapter 4, verse 7, sin crouches at the entrance. When a person enters the world, he immediately is liable to sin due to his loss of Torah knowledge. So he says like this, and the fetus does not leave the womb until the angel administers an oath to him. Okay, so this is where it gets crazy. So, okay, so number one, we got to break down what we just talked about. So when a woman is giving birth, there's an angel as the baby's coming out, like it's not out in the world yet, but it's going through that process, right? And it says before it comes out, the angel comes, smacks it on the mouth, and that's what they say we have this little indentation under our nose comes from, right? So they say smacks it on the mouth, and it forgets the entire Torah. So he comes out, he's ready to sin, but he says, and the fetus did not leave the womb. He says, and the fetus does not leave the womb until the two angels administer an oath to it. So not only that, you're taking this oath before you leave your mother's womb. So like right when the whole thing's happening, all these deals are happening. The angel comes, you forget the Torah. Now you got to make oath. I don't know, is it in that order? I don't know. We're going to see. So it says that, okay, so this is the oath. That to me every knee shall bow, every tongue shall swear. This verse is interpreted that every knee shall bow is referring to the days of one's death, as it is stated in Psalms, all those who go down to the dust shall kneel before him. It says that in Psalms. Every tongue shall swear. This refers to the day of one's birth, as it is stated in the description of a righteous person. He who has clean hands and a pure heart, and who has not taken my name in vain and has not sworn deceitfully in Psalms, has kept the oath and that has kept, i.e., who had kept the oath and took the oath before he was born. Okay, so that's why he's doing this. Okay, so he's bringing this verse, and this verse says, so he's proving that you have to take an oath, right? You got to prove it. So he's bringing this proof. What is this proof? The verse in Isaiah. And the verse in Isaiah says, that to me every knee shall bow and every tongue shall swear. So he says every knee shall bow is till a person dies, right? And he says, and every tongue shall swear, meaning that is me, that is the person who swears before he comes into this world, right? So that's his proof, right? And he creates a criteria. So he says umi haya, and so he says beishuvua. So he says like this, and he says and he says, and what is the oath that the angel to the fetus? What is the oath? Now that we just proved that there is an oath, we gave you some beautiful pasukim, and they were from the prophets. Now we're going to ask what. Now this is the thing. This is the oath, and this is the thing. First of all, this is a real thing, right? They're not wasting their time in the Talmud and Babylon. They're not writing fairy tales. They're passing on a tradition from Mount Sinai, right? And in most cases, even before then, right? So they're passing on traditions to make sure they don't get lost. That's what the Bible is. That's what the Talmud, Bible, Talmud, Shami. These books were written because the Jews were keeping themselves in their tradition, right? And some people like to exclude my ancestors from that. No, and I am wholeheartedly in belief that African Americans stem from different tribes in the west of Africa who were Israelites. And it's not just the Igbo, it's other tribes too. You know, we know their names. I'm going to Nigeria to see these people and get video documentation so you could hear from the elders we're just pausing for a second, but so we can hear from the elders about their tradition of being Israelites and talk about the transatlantic slave trade, right? And I'm getting it all on iPhone, right? That's the whole thing. I'm walking around getting this footage on iPhone. This is real because I can't go to camera crew because I'm in danger. You know what I'm saying? So other guys I know went there and got kidnapped, right? So, but the point is to say that the point is to say that this is the wisdom of my ancestors, right? And so when I'm reading this, it's like, okay, you know what? This makes sense to me. This resonates. All right. So here's what you swear. Here's the oath that you take, the shavua that you take before you leave the fetus. All right, because you believe such an who could write such an idea? Okay, so here's the oath. Dum 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 dum. So it says like this: Be righteous and do not be wicked. This is the oath. You're saying this to the angel before you leave your mother's womb. To be righteous and do not be wicked. And even if the entire world says to you, you are righteous, consider yourself wicked. Woo! And know that the Holy One, blessed be He, is pure. And His minister angels are pure. And the soul that He's given you is pure. And if you preserve it in a state of purity, all is well. But if you do not keep it pure, I, the angel, shall take it from you. So we're going to keep hammering along because what's just being said right now is that all the knowledge of the universe is inside of every one of us. Right? Tani, Rabbi Ishmael. So Rabbi Ishmael taught like this. He's explaining this in the parable. This thing that we just heard about, I'll take your soul if you're not pure. So he says like this. So he says he compares it to a priest who gives truma, the portion designated to the priest, to one who is unreliable in regards to ritual purity, right? Like a person who's like, he doesn't know the laws. Like he doesn't know the laws. He's kind of like in and out, whatever. They call him Amorites, right? Like like kind of like, well, not an ignoramus, but a guy who just doesn't know anything, right? And he struggles to keep things, type of thing, right? He says, and therefore, so what the priest does, everyone brings the priest tithings, a portion of their crops, right? They bring it to the Kohanim. And so the Kohanim who receive all this from everyone, he goes to this one guy and says, hey, I'll give you some of this truma, right? And he says like this is what it says here. He says, and the priest said to him, if you keep it in a state of purity, if you keep in a state of purity, so he says something like this. He says, I'll keep giving you like basically food to nourish you, right? I got an abundance, right? Everyone brings to me. I'll give to you, but you have to keep yourself in a pure state. And if you don't keep yourself in a pure state, right? This is what he says right here. And the priest says to him, if you keep in a pure state, all is well. But if you don't keep in a pure state, I shall burn it before you, right? So he's my kara. He says, what is this verse from which we derive that the fetus administers an oath to a birth on the day of his birth? Where do we hear this from? And so he brings a verse from Psalms, right? He says, upon you I have reviled from birth. You are he who took me out of my mother's womb, right? So that's what he's saying. He says, you are he who took me out of my mother's womb. And he says the word gozai of my mother. He says from where is it derived that the word gozai is a term of administering an oath, right? So he says, when you took me out, gozai of my mother's womb. So he's saying that word gozai means so they're asking the question of how does this word, what do you know that this word is used as a form of oath? Gozai is a term of an administering an oath, and it is written, cut off gozai your hair and cast it away. And he says, this is Jeremiah. He says, which is interpreted as reference to a vow of a Nazirite who must cut off his hair at the end of the term of his Naziriship. right? So we're just going to keep going. We're just going to keep pushing through it. Ve'amar Rebbe Eliezer lema ulecha dobe. So it says like this, and Rav Eliezer says, to what is a fetus in his mother's womb comparable? He said it's comparable to a nut placed in a bison full of water, floating on top of the water. If a person puts his finger on the top of the nut, it will sink. It will sink either in this direction or in that direction. So they're literally describing the fetus inside of a mother. So they're saying it's like having like a nut put inside of a bison in full of water. So like a nut, like in imagine like in a big like a bowl of water. And he says, and you just have the nut like floating around this bowl of water. And he said, if you push it down, it'll go either way. You know what I mean? It's just moving around. There's no like type of thing. He says, Tana Rabbanam Shelo Shah. And he says, and the sages taught in a brisa. We'll learn what a brisa is, all this stuff, because we all got to be rabbis and rabbiettes, right? And so he says, during the first 3 months of pregnancy, the fetus resides in the lower compartments of the womb, right? This is so he's breaking down. Look at this level. So number one, you got to think about it this way. There's different levels of learning the Torah, right? There's different levels of learning the Torah, right? And he said there's 4 different levels. So he's saying there's 3 levels here, right? And then we're going to hear about a 4th dynamic. So during this whole process, when we're talking about the baby inside of the mother's womb, each of the different levels of the pregnancy represents a different level of the Torah the child is learning. You right? That's why they're teaching us this. So the child is learning Torah. And so he says like this. He says, during the first 3 months of the pregnancy, the fetus resides in the lower compartment of the womb. In the middle 3, in the middle 3 months, the fetus resides in the lower compartment. And in the last 3 months, the fetus resides in the upper department. At once it is time to emerge, it turns upside down and emerges, and this is the cause of labor pains. Man, they talking about labor pains back then. Vehinu tanan kalali shel nikabe. So he says, and with regards to the assertion that labor pains are caused by the fetus going upside and down, the Gemara notes, and this is the explanation of that, for which we learn in a Braita. The labor pains experienced by a woman who gives birth to a female are greater than those experienced by a birth of those of a male. And the Gemara below explains. We're going deep in this. Ve'amar Rebbe Eliezer, my kara. So he says, and Rabbi Eliezer says, from which is it derived that the fetus initially resides in the lower part of the womb? He says like this. He brings a verse. So they're breaking down this. When he says, he brings a Psalms to agree with it. So he says, when I was made in secret, I was woven together at the lowest parts of the earth. Ooh, that's his proof. He says, since it is not stated, I resided in the lowest parts of the earth, but rather I was woven together in the lowest parts of the earth. This teaches us that the initial stage of the fetus development is when it is woven together in its location in its lower compartment of the womb. So he says, and the Gemara asks, what is the difference of the labor pains experienced by a woman who gave birth to a female, and that are greater than the ones experienced by giving to a male? The Gemara explains, this one, a male fetus emerges in the manner of which it is engaged in intercourse, which as a male engages in intercourse facing downwards, so too it is a boy who is facing down. And the female emerges in the manner of which a female intercourse, I know is going to go here, and he says, and is facing upwards. Therefore, consequently, that one, a fetus turns face around before it's born. In this one, a male does not turn face around when it's born. Ooh, they broke it down. How did they not 2,000 years ago though? Anyways, Hold on, let me see how far they're gonna go into this because it's kind of going. All right, they're gonna keep. I mean, we could keep going, but I made the point. I made the point. The point is just saying. The point is just the point is just saying that this is the point. Hold on, I just remember what the point was. So this is the point. All that being said, we'll kind of finish the first introduction process.
Hey, Rob, your volume's down.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, okay, yeah. Hold on. Hold on. Okay. Yeah. So okay. So it's like this. Um. All right, let's do this. Okay. Yeah. Screen. Okay. So this will kind of be the final part, and I'm open to any points, suggestions, ideas. Okay. So is it broadcasting? Yeah, it's broadcasting. Okay. Perfect. Okay. So now when we go back to this being the first verse of the Torah, Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim v'haaretz. I'm not reading about the creation of the world. I'm relearning the wisdom that I have inside of me. It's not outside of me. This is a part of me when I was a fetus, that all this information inside of this book and all the books of wisdom. Six days of creation, 7 days he rests, Adam and Eve, all the elements, Noah, the flood, Abraham, the kids, none of them stand on it. So the point is saying, so all wisdom, all spiritual wisdom derives, from this book. But the thing is, there's so many ways to learn it, and there's so many ways to understand it. So this is giving us an understanding of ourselves, right? When we read about it, it says, the earth was formed and it was empty, and darkness covered all over the world. You're reimagining this information I was told to you. It's telling you what was going on outside of your mother's womb. In the face of deep and wind of God swept across the water, and then there was Vayomer Elohim Yevahi, and God said, "Let there be light." There was light. Ve'ir Elohim et haor ki tov ve'havdil. Then it says, and God saw that the light was good, and that He separated light and darkness. V'kara Elohim or yom hoshek. And He says, and God called the night day, and called the darkness night. Yeah, He called the light day and called the darkness night, right? And then and He saw that there was evening in the first day. This is the concept of there being a first day. This is how intricate and how the beginning goes. God is showing us how the concept of a day is created. He showed us with the mechanisms of the universe that we were going to interact with, the heavens and the earth, right? Not limiting that, right? Because Elon Musk says we're going to Mars. Vayomer Elohim Yehi Rakia. And he said, let there be an expansion of the midst of the waters, right? Beitok Hamayim Veyehim Ve'avdil Bin Mayim. And he says, and let the expansion in the midst of the waters so they may separate from waters. Ve'aseh Elohim et harikia. Right? So you can just go on and on. But the point is just saying that this is the concept. So when we're learning the Torah, when we're going through this process, it's not about you being right or him being right or someone's an authority. When we're talking about couples learning, we're talking about this idea of exchanging, this interaction of learning. And in the other classes that we do together, God willing, we'll talk about how to go inside of the text and how to look at the commentaries and how to do that, but not from a place of religiosity, but from a place of self-discovery. Because we're going to learn within those things that there's going to be principles and ideas and moral teachings and different ways of connecting that are going to be for my personal soul, right? I came to Israel to come and learn, but really, I had some difficult experiences in LA. And I decided that, in terms of my Jewish life. And so I decided like I wanted to be independent, right? And so I came to learn to be independent, right? So all the guys that I know, they're not like, even though like I'm learning with your husband, now we're learning every day. I mean, it didn't start like this, but we're every day. But the point is saying none of the guys that I've learned and built with, none of them are following me around at the end of the sugya. They're out doing their own thing. And in fact, at the end of the day, I do so many things that are great, and I'm such a basic guy that people around me say, if he could do it, I definitely could do it. You know what I mean? I'm that guy. Like I'm the guy that people, see and be like, because I did it or I did these things, for sure I could do it. There's nothing super impressive about me. You know what I mean? I'm just a good person. You know what I mean? And just like wants to move forward in life and have fun, right? So your husband's learning, but the whole point is for him just to be his own rabbi, to be his own situation, to be his own, his own leader, and have that for him, his kids, his community. You know what I mean? So I'm not, trying to create followers. I'm not trying to indoctrinate people. I don't want it. I just want to chill. You know what I mean? I'm gonna create great business models, and we're gonna branch this thing out. You know what I mean? Like we're gonna spread this thing all over. But it's just like I don't want the pressure. Something when my mom came to Israel to visit me in 2019, one of the things she said to me, she said different things, but one of the things she said, hey, don't let them make you into some like Messiah type character. She said, because it don't end well. She said, it never ends well for those guys. And I was like, you know what, you're right. She said, we're gonna put the light out, we're gonna put all the information out, we're gonna empower it, whatever. And we out. You got to do it. It's good. If you need to talk to me an email. But the point is just saying, like, I'm not trying to be that, like that model just doesn't work, man. You get assassinated on this stuff. You know what I mean? So the point is just like is doing that. One of my big focuses is connecting the Hebrew Israelite community with the African American Israelite community, like bringing them together, and even to the point of maybe even forming a corporation together, and to think about this idea of maybe having a nation state concept between the both of us. You know what I mean? Meaning like the African Americans and the African Israelites, like a nation state concept, collectively. And we could kind of like, in a way, like, I don't want to get into politics, but like, this interesting thing about the Palestinian concept is like, it's not really a nation state. You know what I mean? It was never like incorporated. It was never like founding fathers. It was a land. It was a land that later became a whole political thing. And I'm not trying to go into, I'm not talking about politics. I'm just saying the point is just saying, looking at the model, they still were able to secure a seat in the United Nations, right? And so what I'm saying, so as African Americans who's been through so much atrocities, and connecting to our descendants, who are in the west of Africa, right? Who migrated through, mid Africa. It's a whole Bantu thing. It's all big. My rabbi is like really pushing that Bantu movement, right? Pinchas, Chief Rabbi Pinchas, and then going all the way back to Israel, right? And so, the point is saying that unification is there, but the biggest concept, and I'll say this in closing, is the education, right? Is the education, meaning that it's not about, people think it's about religion for me in this whole thing and like wanting to convert people and that whole thing. It's like, no, that's not the point. If people want to convert, great. But the bigger issue is the battleground is seeing is battling on who decides what an African American is, who defines us, and what is the narrative, who defines our narrative. Because with the way they've accumulated history, and hey, I'm gonna go in on the academic. They send a white guy to Africa, he write down some notes, he digs a little bit, look at some rocks, you brush him off, he's like, this is from the Byzantine. Okay, he writes that down. He comes back to Western society, Europe. He goes to the university. They purchase the book from him, and then they now provide that as a credible form of history, right? And now I'm defining myself on that. And then I go and talk to the people in West Africa. They're like, no, you came from us. Yeah. They came to them. Listen, they sold you guys. Yeah, it's part of our tradition. Yeah, we know that. They even got Bible verses on us. The whole thing, and they've been persecuted. You know what I'm saying? And people are like, well, why didn't they come and get us? How? And on top of it, the prophecy say you ain't gonna be redeemed by nobody, right? And so the point is saying that I'm not holding on the Deuteronomy thing. I'm just saying there's some truth there, right? And so the point is saying that the point is the same. So that is the goal. Is that from a business perspective, right? So we got curriculum, we have books and those things. That's level one. And level two is obviously organizing buying power. We're not going to go on all that right now. We maybe next level, because always good to talk about the business model, because we bring all the spirituality down into a potent, like into a finite state. It's good to have the big concepts and that, but you got to bring it down into earth, right? And you have to you have to pursue to be as profound as the information you just learned. So that's the main idea right now, is just to say, like, we want to challenge anywhere that the African American narrative um, is being taught. We want to have our materials there. We want to have our curriculum, our own virtual learning platform that will be, the universities and grade schools will have to link through to get this accredited information. so that's the thing, and I think it's a very simple business model, and it's like, you go to parents in the industry, but hey, I just got back from Israel. We Israelites, man, I just found out. It's true. What they It's not like the way they're saying it though. It's like Malcolm X, like after he went to Mecca, you know what I mean? He was like, nah, it's Muslims, all types of Muslims. Before he's like, no, only black people. And everyone else is evil. So he went to Mecca. So I'm coming at Malcolm X afterwards. So I'm like, nah, man, we Jews, man. On top of it, I met other people. I got course curriculum. We need to teach this in the schools. Organizing parents. I hired community organizing organizations. I trained them. Hey, they're going and organizing PTA, all over America, black and white schools. And we're saying, hey, this is an act of social justice, right? Our curriculum is. And if you're saying we're wrong, prove it to us, please, because what you're teaching us is for sure terrible, right? And you're marginalizing my identity, and you're leading me to social economic challenges, because you have given me, you remove my identity. It's a form of an attack, right? So anyway, so that part, and then also the key to the Igbo part is saying, when we talk about the idea of rebuilding the black family, you know, how are we going to rebuild it on what? What's the basis? What's the tradition? I go up to a young dude, he got a girl pregnant, they set 16, 17 years old, God forbid, but it's happening. And you're just like, okay, so you're saying like, oh, okay, well, how do I get them back together? Or how do I even form a family idea? How do I even form a marriage? I'll go to the court. He ain't gonna want to go to the court. They're gonna try to lock him up for some crazy, child support or some type of thing. You know what I mean? Like, they're not dealing with that. So how could we have spirit? What is the spirituality that's non-denominational that we could bring to our community? And that's of our heritage. Everyone believes in the Bible. So whether you're Christian, Muslim, Jewish, it don't matter. These are the traditions. How women deal with themselves, how men deal with themselves, raising children. They don't got a lot of money over there, but they have tradition and they have family. Anyways, all right. So with that being said, any thoughts, any ideas, anything?
I just want to thank you for taking the time out to meet with us. I don't know if he told you, like, my background. I was in education for years,
Oh,
and
wow.
even when it came time for me to leave, like, I just couldn't figure out why. I'm like, why am I leaving my job? I love my job. But I got to the point where it didn't make sense anymore. And the idea that I came in that I was going to make a difference, I was no longer doing that, or I did not feel as though I was doing that. So to hear you talk about going in and reshaping the education system and things like that, I am so excited,
Okay.
because it's like, especially the kids. I've only worked in we're both from the suburbs, but our suburbs and California suburbs, I think, are a little different to an extent. Like, specifically here, we have a large African American population within the 3 towns that surround us, and I've worked in all of them. But it was something missing. And I believe it was the Torah. I believe it was, and it was just the basics of the Torah, just making sure that you're being kind, making sure that you're doing what you're supposed to, making sure that we're following what the angel told us before we left the womb. Those things are missing within our community. And that's that soul that you said in the beginning, like connecting that soul back into our society. And not just for African Americans, all of us,
Exactly.
everybody. It's for all of us, but I love our people. So I'm always going to focus primarily on our
Well,
people.
we're their example. I mean, whether we like it or not, everyone follows what we do, even in our worst ignorance. We start getting ignorant, like they get ignorant with us. They're like, oh, I'm with y'all, I'm with y'all. You know, let's get
Yeah.
ridiculous. You know.
We're definitely imitated a lot, even
Mhm.
advertising. I was talking to my family because I actually went to school for advertising, but
Mm.
somehow ended up a teacher. But when I was talking to them last week, I'm like, do y'all realize they're advertising to us? Everything is towards us because once we do it, the rest of the world follows suit. So with us in Torah, if we can get together and we can do it, the rest of the world will follow suit and we'll get to that that state of peace and that state of harmony in which Hashem wanted the world to be when he created it.
So it's interesting, you know, listening to you because it's like for sure you and your husband are like soulmates. You know what I mean? Because it's like you guys have the same exact like voice, not tone, not the sound, but like the way you talk and the way you express your ideas and the way you articulate like your sentences or like it's so much alike. I'm like, wow, they sound exactly like that way, but it's a sign that the souls are similar because the voice is an expression of the neshama. So when you hear people and they sound alike, you know, it's interesting. You know, it's funny. Like I know this guy in his. I hear people do that. It's like amazing. Like people just send me, oh yeah, I got to do this class. Oh yeah, so anyway, so yeah, I got to get it. But anyway, so things like this. So it's we're using my link this week. Anyway, so you know, it's an interesting. So anyway, this guy, it's like a weird story. Anyway, this guy was married to his wife, and it wasn't really working out for them. They had a couple kids, whatever, blah 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 blah. And so his wife hooked him up with a lady, right? After they were divorced, right? You know, they had a good thing. Why did the wife hook him up? She said, because she sounded exactly like my husband. Like the way she talked, the way she spoke, whatever. They've been married like 15 years or something like that since they're like older now, whatever. But it was just like a funny story. So it's just, you know, when you see people that have similar voices, you should just listen to the voice, you know, you hear like, wow, like this thing, like rhythms and patterns. So it's a very good idea of like on the soul level. Anyways, sorry. So let's we'll just keep building. We're getting to know each other, you know, and you know, it's a process, you know. That's why, you know, me and your husband, we have this like, you know, routine. We learn like, you know, this particular, you know, character development, which is great for both of us, you know, just work on our character and behavior and seeing things and sensitivity. So we've been learning that every day and also preparing for Hanukkah, you know, learning a different holocaust for Hanukkah. And but the thing is um the thing is that yeah, what was I gonna say at a point? Anyways, we'll figure it out. But the point is the same. So so that's what I'm saying. Yeah, so we're getting to like know each other, whatever, because this is like a long relationship. Like it's so much to get done. It's like, you know, this, and I'm going to Nigeria, and then after I go to Nigeria, I'm gonna come back to the United States and figure that out because we gotta make sense of everything out there. I'm gonna go to Nigeria and raise money. Nigerians, they got to give it up because they got some billionaires out there, you know, and they got 100 millionaires out there, and so they got to give up, you know, put together a pot, you know, and because we got work to do in America. And at the end of the day, they win because they're co-branded with Americans. We're branding you with African Americans. I just put you on. Nobody, people are dying. No one cares. One black person gets shot in the street. There's riots all over the world. Come on, you see the difference. Figure it out. George Floyd gets choked up. The whole world's doing it. There's a couple 100,000, you know, people in Nigeria, Boko Haram, all these different places died. No one cares. So there's a unique status that the African American has in the mind of the world's public. So I'm branding you for that. That's 7-10 million, period, off top. Come on, let's stop playing around. And the thing about it, that's not even profit. That's just money I'm using to put into the work, you know, to hire the organizers, to have the materials, to have them go out, to do the meetings, to have infrastructure, you know. So that's what my things are. I'm saying 7-10 mil just to get a basis, you know, and then we'll talk about the other part of the business model, which is organizing buying power. But anyways, long story short, the point is just saying that um, we're talking about branding, you know, the Igbo community, Israelite community with African Americans. And so for that, that's why I'm going to Nigeria to shoot documentary, different things. But they got to come with that 10 mil cake. They got to, because it's like the thing about it. I need infrastructure. What do you want me to do? Hand out flyers? You know what I mean? Like we got to really put this thing out. And then their whole political situation. I just elevated you. Please stop it. You can't even pay me enough for what I'm doing. You can't pay me enough. Nobody in the world is going to do this. I just elevated your whole play. Now all of a sudden, now you got people saying, "I'm Igbo. I'm connected to Igbo. They're in the hood. I'm Igbo." So now if something go wrong with the Igbos, now they could go to their local congressperson and say, "Hey, what's going over there? America, get involved." You know what I'm saying? Senators get involved. Congress people get involved. You know what I'm saying? City council people get involved. So same thing like Palestinian stuff, right? Everybody got involved on that. So why can't we do it for a black situation? You know what I'm saying? So anyway, so the point is just saying, so that's the mindset. And I also believe that the black wealth expansion is abroad. I don't necessarily think it's domestic. That's a whole nother point of conversation. Anyways, we'll continue tomorrow. You know, your husband's been so much supportive that, you know, he has undivided amount of time with me. So don't ever feel he's been such a supporter, right? So don't feel like, oh, you're taking your time out. No, he's like, you know, he's my main guy. You know what I mean? And the thing about it, I'm not even trying to bring a lot of people into my situation. You know what I mean? Because it's just like, it's all types of agendas going on. You know what I mean? You just got to keep a low profile. You know what I mean? A lot of times. So anyways, I got to jump on this. I'm doing a class in India now. It's crazy. I just remembered. So, so I'm doing that right now. I do it every Sunday. Anyways, so this is